Hey guys, welcome. Today is another video day for us, and it is about something which is really helpful to all your customers and friends and followers and whatever. It's about documentation about your code. And yeah, I have no idea how to do that because all I ever did was a simple README and comments in the code, but there's more. And Cody,
How is that? How is that helpful for your family and friends, man?
yeah, yeah,
I would really in the future. I will make a documentation someday which just has references to Stack Overflow. You know, the best of two worlds.
yeah. Yeah, but then you have to also make sure that it stays the same, right? Because if Stack Overflow changes the things,
There are always side issues.
yeah, always.
What are you drinking, man?
I'm again on the white tea silvery needle. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I love
I'm the
that
same,
one.
man. I didn't drink it since last time we made a video.
Okay.
The Baimudan. And I figured out that it's actually just green tea. They just call it, how is it called again? The white peony,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So there's nothing of it in. So
Okay.
I'm like, okay, that's cool too, you know? But it's a really nice green tea,
Yeah.
man. Next, super. Yeah, cool, man. Two white teas accidentally. That's always
Yeah.
good.
But I love that one.
Right started today, man.
Yeah.
I peed my eyes. So let's get started with documentation. Man. Um, so today we talk about documentation. Like you cannot avoid this.
Yes.
No matter what you do, you cannot get around this at some point.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm always a bit annoyed because some companies have very restrictive. They are like, you need to document everything perfectly, and you're like, huh? Like takes too much time doing everything cleanly. So what I try to give you a bit here is an overview.
Uh-huh.
I try to give a bit of feeling for this shit. Sorry, for this stuff. You see, I have strong emotions.
It's usually a good thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, it shows that you're passionate about it in some way.
You know, anger and hatred is also a motivation.
Yeah. Right.
You need to channel it into something in the end.
Yeah.
Documentation is one part, the source code the other half.
Yeah.
And memes. Never forget memes. Okay, so you can do a lot of documentation. I think I don't need to outline it too much in detail, but what you should generally at least do is a README or something, like a general introduction or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Also where you maybe have just show how to install it quickly or whatsoever. That's the at least you should do if someone else might interact with it. It's usually,
Yeah.
I mean, writing a small README is no effort. Come on, like that's
Yeah.
that's basically mandatory.
Yeah.
When you go a bit more, when you know the project is gonna be bigger and stuff like that, then of course you do things, you blow it up over time.
Yeah.
Golden rule, Manu. I always tell that everyone is, don't go hardcore into documentation right away, that you start building the documentation setup, because that can take up to a week if you just do that and the source code has not moved an inch. And that's really makes no sense. So what I always tell people is, while your code base grows, depending on how big it gets, you also start to let the documentation grow, that you
Yeah.
make it more thorough, that you add details about stuff which becomes stable, you know. So
Yeah.
I see that a lot of people always wanting to in the beginning outline all the graphs and the architecture. They write the code and none of it is true anymore.
Yeah. It changes
It's
all.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's just, you know, a bit. It's just silly to do everything in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's just not how it works. Yeah. One big thing which I really love is ADRs, architecture decision records. That could be which library do I use for, like in Python, which request library do I use? Or sometimes, if, let's say you interact with Git or GitHub, there are a few libraries. Which one do you choose?
Yeah.
Also decisions, do I write something myself? Do I use an external solution? Stuff like that is usually bigger stuff which influence your software. And
Yeah.
all that you want to have is you basically have then in the end the record where you know why you did anything, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Right.
I never took it too serious always.
Uh-huh.
But in the end, we had a few people from outside our team who, I don't know why, but look at this stuff and they are really appreciative for it, to understand why we did stuff. Do you know that? Sometimes you look at a project and like, what the heck did you do there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why the hell did you choose exactly this? This is so...
Yeah.
And then, at least in an ADR, you can read them like, okay, that's what the alternatives they just chose, upside, downsides. It's basically like a small README,
Yeah.
1, maybe maximum 2 pages.
Yeah.
And there is the whole decision quickly outlined, and then,
Yeah.
so
Makes
ADR
sense, yeah.
yeah, really cool. Definitely a big winner if you have a bit around you. Also, if your clients bug you, you can always say, hey, this is why we did it. You know, don't even need to explain, just send them the document. That's the best. Like shush, here is the document, go away.
Yeah. Easy defense. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it has its upsides. Having good documentation is you can kind of
sure.
like answer questions by tossing it into people's faces and be done with it. Yeah. Sometimes if you have some part of the source code or the entire source code needs to be documented, source code map, I don't think that's something like this. I have an old package from my previous job. But it looks basically then like this, you know, that you have the class, the functions and the arguments, examples. This is basically the source code map.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
that helps tremendously if you want to use it. To just see, for example, what it returns and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But just for the API, don't do that.
Yeah,
for
not for everything. Yeah.
No.
Just for things somebody else could use.
I never saw you do it, fortunately.
No.
Really just the interface. That's more than enough in most of the time. It's usually just a few classes anyway. The architecture, if you write a microservice, that we will get to that next in our course.
Yeah.
Also document that if it does a lot of like certain interactions that you know, okay, this server's running here, there is the database, it's communicating here. You can do that very detailed. In the beginning, do it very rough. Just say, okay, this runs here, and does this. And I think our GRT, you did it really well there. Let's go to GitHub. When we wrote that for fun and for learning.
Yeah, with the setup of the harvester and farmer.
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
How this here, for example, and stuff you did back then. That's kind of that.
Yeah.
Start like this, and if there is a need important, if there's someone outside who needs to understand it more, or you get more people working with you, then of course it's really crucial that you go that way. Yeah. So that's about it. And one thing is, if they want to go hardcore because I don't know, the client wants it because you hand it over to them in the end or whatever, then I really love the Arc 42. That's kind of like the full-blown thing.
Okay.
They basically tell you, okay, the steps what you should document: introduction, goals, constraints, context and scope, like the whole deal. The building blocks, the runtime view, deployment view, the cross-cutting concepts, architectural decisions, quality requirements, risk and technical debt, and so forth. They're full-blown.
So like a standard, or is it? What is that?
Yeah, kind of. It's like a guide standard. You could call it like that. Why I like it is it's lean. It's pretty much complete. Most of the time, you can still leave stuff out. It's so full. And your project will be really well documented afterwards. Never saw a case so far in our situation where this was not sufficient. But this takes time. And especially when you look at this stuff, building block view, runtime view, that costs time to build. And it should be stable. If you change this a lot, the API calls between pieces and stuff. You don't want to do this in the beginning. You will update it basically every small release. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But really cool, the ARC42, really recommend it.
Is it also a little bit like the UML standard of displaying how a program functions? Because it reminded me somewhat on it. Because
I mean, the UML is just
more formal, right?
Yeah, it's more formal. What else is it? But it doesn't have this really. I think UML doesn't have
it's
really
not about
this.
documentation. It's more.
Yeah.
It's
It's
structuring.
more about the document itself, how it's done and stuff, and the standard about it. But it's not about introduction and goals, like all of this around it, like context and stuff.
Yeah. So you could do that with an UML diagram, but you are not bound to it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the whole deal of it. So that's the rough outline. And if you know that much, you're pretty much set well for any project you do.
Okay.
Just follow something like this, and your team will also follow something like this always automatically. Yeah. Now the question is not what to document, but how to document.
Yeah. Because you don't want to do that completely manual. I mean, that would be hell.
What do you mean? You mean that you automate it? Yeah, that's a part of it, definitely.
Yeah, because, well, I was just thinking about when you told us with the API calls and if it's changing much. And I was just imagining going every time in Illustrator and arranging the pictures again and drawing the arrows new and fresh and clean. And if you do that a lot, that takes so many hours. I mean...
Yeah, you don't want to know the truth. I was already sweating when you started talking. But actually, a lot of this stuff is done by hand in our team still.
Okay. It's not so easy, right?
The problem is you cannot... API interactions, they are really poorly automatically to document from the code, you know?
Yeah.
There's just... I never saw that, but it would be a really cool tool now that you mention it, if that would be possible to have it automatically documented, which API calls get when done during the call graph. I mean, there's stuff like this, like a flame graph, which does it for function calls up, but yeah, quite interesting, man.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
I had contact a lot with that during my PhD, and I was drawing arrows all the time. And in Java, there's also, for example, you can just throw in a bunch of source code, and it automatically generates you a class diagram. That was helpful, for example, but that doesn't mean that you can document use cases and user scenarios and stuff like that. Yeah, so...
That's the pain. The class diagrams, we had that a few times and also, and I realized you cannot draw so much information out of it. Like, it's nice to see the classes, but it still doesn't tell you how it does anything, you know?
How it's used,
It's kind of like a person comes to you, throws you a few bricks in front of your feet and says, that's basically a house, you know? You're like, how does this work?
It's like with Lego bricks. You have just a bunch of Lego bricks, and you have to tell which product is it. Is it a spaceship? Is it a car? But you have just the pieces, and they're not ordered.
And then you realize that how it's done is more important than what it's consisting of.
Right. Yeah.
It's a really good example, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so my most loved starting point is always Markdown.
Yeah, Markdown
I don't
is great.
think I need to explain it, but I mean, it takes this syntax and renders it so beautifully, and you have it with links and inline images and whatever you want to do, code blocks, tables. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Like, Markdown is so easy to write.
Yeah.
If someone tells me no, they don't want to do Markdown because
do it in LaTeX.
Too much. No, Jesus.
No, really. We had used some software which generates documentation with LaTeX style, and they were so proud of it. And but this was a few years back, so I have to be honest. But yeah, Markdown is maybe the better way to go.
Yeah. So in the beginning, everyone out there, start with Markdown. And then after some time, you can choose if you go into a framework. Um, in Python, there are basically two bodies you can choose. One is Sphinx, and one is mkdocs.
Yeah.
Sphinx is still, I think, more popular and more and widely, not more widely used, but still very widely used.
Yeah.
It does a really good job at what it does, but kind of it lacks like automatic upload to GitHub is done in mkdocs through a command, and here it's some more manual stuff. Like also the outline of the project here does not look so nice necessarily. Like
a decade old.
There's not a lot to say about Sphinx here. I can just show you the docs I did back then with Sphinx. I mean, this is basically Sphinx. You know, it looks pretty nice. The source code, the source code documentation is really good, I must say. Like it has a really nice view. You can customize it here with some logos. You can also just do some pages where you explain stuff. You know, like it does a really good job still. And I think that's why it looks so, it looks well contained. That's why people like it so much. And I think you saw this type of documentation very often, I think.
But the most
very,
important
very
question, Cody, the most important question, does it have a dark mode?
Not manually, I think, but for sure someone wrote a plugin someday. Yeah. And there is, here, of course, we have let me quickly launch it from our example section here. So I already prepared this, the docs serve from the 8th lessons, which basically does nothing else than build it with mkdocs. We will go for mkdocs. And mkdocs, it looks really neat and nice also. It's more favorable and more modern, I would say. It also has the source code map. This doesn't look as nice though. I'm still a bit annoyed by this because it looks neat and beautiful, but it's less concise to my eye than this here. This here is way more lean,
more structured. Also, they use more the indentations, and here it's just more or less one. Level.
So I'm not the biggest fan of it because of this element. This is really what really annoys me. But besides that, it's definitely the better choice, I would say. And I will get into that in a second. But this is most people use it with the material theme. The default theme is crap. You don't want to do that. But it's the same for Sphinx. You always need a theme. But I mean, look at this. It's so beautiful. What you can do here, you can have these elements to show it for, I don't know, different programming languages. You know, and this is all Markdown. It's super, super easy to set up.
Mind-blowing, I think. Beautiful. Yeah, that's just Markdown.
It's so good.
Right.
So I would recommend to basically everyone. It has dark theme. No. No, it's super. Like, this is really nice. And what I also like is you can set up the bars in that pretty easily. So you have a navigation here through the page. Here the table of contents for the page. Here's different pages, and here you even have still additional tabs. Like, it's so customizable. I don't need to say a lot about it. I think you saw it now. They do crazy stuff with it. So
it's easy to set up.
mkdocs.
So that's I think the most important thing. Because, well, at least in my opinion, if it's not easy to set up, well, you get easily frustrated with it because you're doing the docs besides your coding work. So you have your source code job, and then you have to do the documentation about it. And if that's not an easygoing thing, I think that causes strong emotions and not the good ones. So, I fully agree on that. Sphinx also is a bit more of a RST guy. RST is just something else than Markdown, to say it quickly. Oh, all right.
It does the same basically, but it definitely looks different. Let me quickly. Like, it has this odd syntax, you know, stuff like this with dot dot, then indentation, then always these odd double points everywhere. Like the source file if you read Markdown, it's really nice and contained. But here it's kind of like, no,
too many dots.
It doesn't look. Yeah, it doesn't read like a normal document, really. That's why Markdown is so beautiful, is even if you read it in text mode, it's kind of really beautiful, And so the reason why I always by default recommend MKDocs is it's really easy to set it up, like very, very fast. This is the first and most important thing, because you don't want to spend too much time on that anyway. And the second is its backbone is, again, Markdown primarily.
Okay.
So what you do is, at best, is you start with Markdown files, toss them into a folder or something if you have more documents, and at some point you come along with MKDocs, take half a day and build the most beautiful documentation out of it and be done with it for a long time, my friend.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
And that's a really good combination,
Yeah.
With things, it's still a bit more work, I had the feeling. Maybe if I would try now after 2 years or something again, maybe stuff changed. You never know. But from what I saw, not enough compared to MKDocs. So good combination. Go with those two.
Okay.
They're really your best friends.
Yeah.
And it looks like this. Follow friends. Yeah. All you have is basically you run MKDocs init in your project. You can follow the guide there, and it creates you this file here. And this is the whole config. You can add plugins.
Yeah.
Which I also did. You will find that out in the lesson. Then you basically say, okay, this is the navigation, the main navigation. You basically see here. By the way, you can also customize it to put it up or whatever, And then you just tell it which document it is, and bam, that's it. Okay.
I mean, that's super fast.
Yeah. Then the theme, some additional information like this heading up here in the browser is basically here and stuff. So super, super easy, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nothing compared to getting a whole page, right?
Right. Definitely.
And we can go into those documents for a second, and maybe into the raw mode even. But there's nothing, like, it's just Markdown,
It's just Markdown, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing special going on. Source code is a bit something special, because here we document the function. But this is also just this here, and then it later looks like this here,
Okay. So
it's also no brainer. You have a few extra directives. I'm never afraid of these double points. I don't know. I guess we all have our nemesis.
Yeah.
But yeah. And what's really cool is, look at this quick start guide. It looks super here because it's Markdown. Yeah. And it's just rendered then also nicely here. So it's kind of like in the browser you could visualize it here, even without the docs. But here you just have it then also nicely rendered and all of that stuff. So really good.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like, I mean, you cannot imagine. I mean, there's not more to do. This is so amazing. I mean, there's a bit of extra work around it still. The plugins.
Yeah.
I'll go quickly through it. MKDoc strings I use for scraping the source code. It also works for other programming languages, by the way. MKDocs. So that's one part.
Oh, that's also good. Yeah.
And the CI/CD, I will get to that in a second. Of course, you also need to publish it. And they make it really easy. Let's start with the task file. I'm getting a bit too fast into my coding mode. In the task file, I have added 2 commands. The docserve, which just runs mkdocserve, basically. Let me make it bigger. Mkdocserve.
Yeah.
And the publish step. And all it does, I don't even think I need this one, but it builds the documentation once again. And then mkdocs has this beautiful command, GitHub -deploy. And what it does is, every GitHub project, you already know that, has basically something called GitHub Pages.
Yep.
And GitHub Pages is just a special branch. We don't have it here. I'm just thinking, which of my projects does have a GitHub Pages branch? I think the Death Star, of course, should have it. Yeah, of course, I have no link to it. That is very unfortunate, but in the settings, usually you can find it under Pages. Here we go. Exactly. And this branch basically then hosts your documentation. So you see it's reachable under the org / the project. And then you have it,
Okay,
this beautiful
that's also
website.
cool, yeah. So you can also link that on your homepage or so, yeah.
Yeah, this is such a favorite. People like to host any kind of stuff for free on GitHub. Because all you need to have is static HTML and JavaScript code. It's super easy to, I mean, yeah, that's super cool. So
easy website hosting.
Some people at our company, they do that with Angular. They use Angular, compile it to HTML and JS, and just host it on GitHub Pages.
Oh man,
this is so funny,
guys. Okay.
Yeah, you take whatever you get, man.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
So this is really cool, and all of this setup is basically done in where was it? Here in the single command. And this is why I like it so much.
Yeah.
Because it kind of sets this all up for you.
Yeah.
In such a well-contained fashion, and like I said, the stuff lives here on this page, GitHub Pages branch, and you see there's okay, here it's written source code, but it's not source code. This is not the source code. This is really just the HTML code. It's an orphan branch. Orphan means it's totally detached. It's like it has nothing to do with the other side of the repo. It's its own thing, and there you just dump this stuff, you know.
So that also means that if your source code changes, you also have to what do you call it? Sync the documentation manually with this command. Well,
not yeah. Good question. Yeah, of course, you already know where it's going.
Yeah, I know.
Young fellow.
The workflow.
Yeah, you just add it into the CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah.
Most people do it after the publish step. There's even a plugin which can version it for you, that you have multiple versions. It's called Mike for MKDocs.
Okay.
And then you can even have it like what we have even set up, but it's more complicated. That's why I didn't do it here, because at some point you need to stop also for this tutorial.
Sure, yeah.
And what you have then is basically in this documentation, you have here a drop-down.
Oh, that's super nice. Yeah.
Yeah, wait, the S-Bomb project, I think, had it. How was the project again called? We have it in our dependencies. They used it. Not Cyclone DX. I forgot it. I think here I disabled it already. But yeah, you then have this drop down here, and then you can choose multiple versions. What we do is we even build it on develop.
Yeah.
So we have a develop version, we have the version.
Yeah.
And like I said, the plugin is Python MKDocs Mike. In case anyone is ever interested into it, works really well. Really cool. Maybe they have it on their documentation.
Hopefully.
Are you kidding me? They don't have it on their own documentation?
On the top right, there's something with a version.
Nah, that's just a link to their GitHub repository.
Yeah, okay.
Ah, too bad. I would really love to. Nah, that's the wrong one, isn't it? No, wait. Of course, man. I was clicking on the wrong documentation. I was so fast that I didn't even read what I'm clicking. This is so embarrassing. I don't see any.
They don't have a documentation.
This is just MKDocs.
Yeah.
Here, there's the example. Here, it's super horrible with material. It looks nicer, but you have this drop down here. Like I said, you can do it for develop too. And that's really nice then.
That's cool,
but
yeah.
In my experience, if you don't sell a product where it's really important to see what changes between versions, not worth it.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
And I can tell you 99% of the projects will not need this. This is useless in most cases. Okay. So you do a release of your software, you update the documentation, be done with it.
Right.
If you have a lot of clients and stuff like this, then start documenting the different versions, of course. But that won't kill you. That's so easy. Edit as a plugin. So you add it to your CI/CD and be done with it, man. Never touch it again. Never think about it.
Yeah, it's just sounds too good to be true, but yeah, it's just that easy. Set it up.
And when you set it up here, you just run mkdocs serve. You can run it locally. You see here, Poetry. It runs tests first. I will show that in a second why.
Yeah.
Poetry run mkdocs serve, and you have it locally running, and you can visit the websites and all of it. Really, really easy. Last thing, why do I run the tests too? Before. So if you look in the task file, you see here, it has a dependency tests, and it runs this test task before. And what it does is it runs PyTest and uses something which is called coverage. So it checks during the tests which code lines are covered by the unit tests.
Yeah.
That's you know that already, but from some people out there who have forgotten the testing lesson,
go back.
It's good to cover as much of your code as you can with tests. And this is one part of it, is in the end to have a coverage report.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is mkdocs has this plugin too, coverage, not mkdocs strings, coverage. And what it allows you to is to have the coverage report inlined here.
Okay.
And look at this, like you see, basically, unfortunately, there's this is now all covered, but it would be a red line or something if it would not be covered.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool, because by this you can kind of see, okay, this file has only 57% coverage, which lines are not covered, and then you can time over time increase the total coverage. So this is really, I love this. I mean, look at this. This is so cool.
Yeah. It's just the same functionality as you have in the console if you're doing the coverage report. So you can jump between files and stuff. Yeah.
And also if your client then comes and like, how well is it tested or whatever, you can always say, look at the thing, have fun.
Sure.
And be done with it.
Yeah. And you even don't have to have a IDE installed for that. So you just can visit the link and see how the coverage is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And this is really nice.
Yeah.
And this is how a good, healthy project, like if I invite you for, or if you get hired, or you're hiring interview, and you get a task, and you throw a mkdocs page at them with some docs, which is really easy to set up, write a few things in Markdown, wrap it quickly into the page. It's not even half a day for just this minimal stuff, even if you have already a layout, it goes quick. People will kiss you. They will be like, wow, you even did the documentation page, with a lot of different points,
Yeah.
So, because this is also always a question of hiring is writing tests for what you wrote for the hiring interview. Happens often.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you can also say, people love it then when they can even see how much tests you covered. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so good trick to learn, and plenty worth the effort.
Yeah, right. So in any case, I recommend when you have a hiring interview to just go write a few Markdown, a little bit of Markdown anyway, about what you did, because otherwise you will not get the job anyway.
Yeah.
And then you still have the option, depending on how much time you have and whatsoever, to wrap it quickly into mkdocs.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. It's no effort really. And then you're basically done with it. That's so amazing. And you saw how beautiful it can look like.
Right.
So That's basically most I would tell people. By the way, the SBOM, I would also put it usually in the source, the bill of materials, kind of what libraries you used from previously. But I have figured out it has a conflicting version with Jinja 2.
Okay.
The MD-BOM and the MKDocs material.
Okay,
It's a bit annoying.
Yeah.
They use Jinja 2.2, and I think the other one uses Jinja 2 major version 3, and they are not incompatible, of course. It's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Here it is. I finally found it. Okay, this is how it looks like, the different versions when you have it in the MKDocs material.
Yeah. The right template.
Yeah. Yeah, so I put it out. It's not too bad though.
Yeah.
You could even render it manually if your clients really want it into the page. It does not take a lot of time to add that to over time. So you will be set up well with Markdown and MKDocs, but feel free to also use Sphinx. If that's what you had good experience with, and you know how to do stuff, okay, continue going with Sphinx. I must still say I'm more of an MKDocs fan nowadays, but
yeah,
there's not one solution for everything anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's about it. Documentation said it. Yeah, my camera just died, just to let you know.
Oh,
man, really. I have to get a new one.
Silence, please.
Yeah. The poor M50.
Yeah, we will
miss him
with it.
Or her, whatever.
It was so good.
Yeah, but anyways, I think it's a pretty good intro into the documentation, and I think it's plenty worth the effort to just learn the strategies to do it, even if it's just the simple markdown files. Can't leave it out. So
if you want a professional job, I would even call it almost mandatory, having done anything like it.
Yeah.
And if you want to get the hiring job, like I said in the interview, presenting an MKDocs or something is a big plus.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, and that's one reason why to learn it. But on the other hand, your users will also thank you. So if you have a good documentation, it's much more probable that the users will use actually your software instead of just trying it.
You can also document not source code with it. Like you can just document any kind of stuff you would like with MKDocs. I want to emphasize that too. It's just for Markdown.
Yeah, right.
Like it doesn't have to be source code or anything. You can just build a homepage to, I don't know, write something down or whatever you like. There's no limit to it.
Yeah. My camera is alive again. Yeah, I brought her back.
Did you reanimate it by blowing at it like?
Yeah, just with new currency. So no, not currency, current, new power. Just with the defibrillator. Yeah, she's alive again. Man.
little pics. Okay, so we hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you liked it.
Yeah. Also, join the Discord.
Join the Discord if you have any questions about this whole topic. It should be all in the description. We hope to get some opinions from both of you, what we experience also with maybe Sphinx, not only MKDocs, but also Sphinx, to give people a bit a feeling also that the world is not bad necessarily over there too. And otherwise we see you next time with a good cup of tea.
That's it, boys and girls. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.